Awesome. Welcome, everybody, to our United Nations General Assembly Science Summit session on Institut Pasteur and UCSF's Quantitative Biosciences Institute, highlighting women leaders building a future of global data connection for research and response. We're really glad you're able to join us today, and I'm really excited for this discussion with some of my favorite people to work with and some new colleagues and friends from across the globe, all working on infectious diseases research and creating a globally connected network that we can all work together. So my name is Myrielle Holko. I'm going to be your moderator today. I'm going to be facilitating the discussion here and introducing you to all of these amazing women leaders in science. And really what we'd love to do is have an interactive discussion. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat and we will integrate them as we go. So we're going to start off with, I'm going to give you a little bit of an introduction to what we're going to talk about here today and just kind of the goals of the session. And then I'm going to hand it over to Celine Perier, who's going to talk a little bit about this, the convening reason why we're here, which is this Institut Pasteur and UCSF Quantitative Biosciences Institute, or QBI, network that has been created and that the teams globally are leveraging to create greater connectivity and faster infectious diseases research. So really the goals of this session are to introduce this established partnership and to talk about some of the reasons and motivations for the established partnership. And we think that one of those is really lifting up women in science and groups that are traditionally marginalized and don't really have a voice, and enabling that to greater connectivity to lead to strengthening across the globe. Because especially in the face of infectious disease threats, and emerging infectious diseases, which are increasing over time due to climate change and globalization and a lot of other factors, we're seeing that we are a lot more at risk to having lives lost and lives impacted by infectious disease threats. So the faster we can be to research and figure out, novel ways to combat these infectious diseases with vaccines and therapeutics, the better off we're going to be. So the goals really are to describe to you how IPQBI was formed and some of the benefits for globally connected labs, but also to really highlight some of the voices of women leaders who are actively building this network. And then, we're going to touch briefly upon some of the technologies and architectures that we think can advance global health security through data sharing and greater connectivity. And a little bit embedded into this is science and technology diplomacy and aspects of global health research to health security. And all of this in the context of the United Nations General Assembly's Sustainable Development Goals, which are, to improve efficiency, to allow using technology for greater connectivity so that, we're able to sustainably continue to do research and develop, and in the face of all of the challenges that are going on. So I'm going to hand it over to Celine. Celine, if you would like to go ahead and share your screen and your slides.
Yeah.
Perfect. Perfect.
To Tony's point, 13 years of an incredible fixed income environment.
Okay.
Hi, thank you, Myrielle, for the introduction. So I will briefly present the Institut Pasteur UCSF QBI Center. It's a center that was created in October 2022 in response to the threat caused by the infectious disease today and in the future. So it's really a center that will study infectious disease and the emergence of infectious disease. So our goal is really to build a strong international center in the field of emerging disease by combining the expertise of both institutes, the Institut Pasteur. Oops, that's me. I have two screens, of course. Okay. So here you can see the combination of both institutes, the Institut Pasteur in Paris, France, and QBI, the Quantitative Bioscience Institute at UCSF in San Francisco. So to change our approach for a study, the understanding, the treatment and prevention of emerging disease. So the Institut Pasteur in Paris is well known for all its expertise in infectious disease, including parasites, virus, bacteria, and fungi. And over the year, the Quantitative Bioscience Institute, that we call QBI, developed cutting-edge quantitative approach, such as mass spectrometry, CRISPR, cryo-EM. And we believe that the combination of both expertise will provide unprecedented insight into how infectious agents will hijack and rewire the human cell during infection. So the center is co-led by Carla Saleh at Institut Pasteur. She's the head of virus and RNA unit, and Professor Nevan Krogan at QBI at UCSF. And the goal, one of the main goals of the Institute is to have a global strategy to establish robust collaborative research networks by leveraging the network both at Institut Pasteur and QBI all over the world. So in light of this, we already have developed several exchange programs. And in particular, we are developing, as Myrielle said, a women fellowship that will focus on bringing women in our location at San Francisco at UCSF to study bioscience and infectious disease using all the cutting-edge technology that develop at UCSF. And we really believe that this scholarship is an extraordinary opportunity to work with a unique center positioned in Europe and in the US to develop partnership in a collaborative network. So it's really, and here, so today we have 3 amazing women that will join us to talk about this center and the opportunity for women in the world to study infectious disease. So Jacqueline is the Chief Operating Officer of QBI. She has a lot of experience of bringing women in UCSF and working with women in developing countries. Jacqueline Kyosimire-Lugemwa, that is in Uganda. It's in the Uganda Virus Research Institute in Uganda. And Myrielle Dupont, she's in the Pasteur Network, the director of the unit Dengue and Arboviruses in New Caledonia. So Myrielle,
Awesome. Thank you, Celine. That's fantastic. And we'll so I'm gonna say just a couple words, and mostly just give you a little bit of like a background career trajectory. And Celine would love for you to kind of circle back to that piece of it too. But in the context of, IPQBI and really building this global network, one of the reasons I'm so excited to be working with this team is because I have seen firsthand how, building pathways for connectivity in kind of peace times, so to speak, means that when things heat up and there are issues, that you already have these kind of like streamlined networks and are able to reach out to experts that have complementary skill sets and can help solve the problem overall. And I think about this in the context of data and information sharing. And so one of the organizations that I've mostly recently worked with is Google. And, at Google, when you think about performing a Google search, you don't think about how on the back end that requires all of the information, all the world's information on the internet to be connected and to be meaningfully integrated in such a way that your search terms are able to kind of cross over all of those various different formats that those data were in. And so I see this IPQBI network as being starting to lay the groundwork for that connectivity. And I think, when it comes to specific types of data, especially the mass spec data, figuring out pathways to connect those automatically so that you can do artificial intelligence, that's a little bit more complicated. But I think what we're talking about here is the fact that it really requires people to be connecting in order to make those relationships stronger and to really have the opportunity to share not only expertise, but biosamples in the face of an emerging infectious disease threat when a virus needs to be understood. So all of that to say, I think that, what we're really talking about here is with a goal towards getting to that kind of automated data connectivity But really the first step is people. I've seen time and time again that, technology only works when people use it, and that really the relationships are the motivating factor. All of the work around usability and is really important, but I think the relationships are key. So that's really what we want to focus on today is, why is it important to do this? But more so, how can we start to connect more deeply across this network? And what are some of the thoughts that we have? So, one of the programs that IPQBI has started to do is kind of an exchange model where, members of specific parts of the network are able to come to kind of the hub that's being formed at UCSF in San Francisco, California, which, Celine, did you mention that this will be the first Institut Pasteur in the United States? So I think that's a really exciting thing to highlight here is that, yes, Institut Pasteur is this global network of expertise around infectious diseases across the globe, and yet we, have not had that network really anchored in the United States. And I think there's a huge potential there for a lot of good to be done. So, this hub at UCSF that's being created, having that be able to, have an active network of research fellows coming and spending some time, either learning specific techniques or just, creating those relationships, working on specific projects together. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then I'm going to shift gears a tiny little bit, and we didn't start with this, but as I go around and ask people to, kind of give us your background, tell us about your experience with both IPQBI, but also your career in science and what that's meant to you. I will kick it off by sharing where in the world I am, because we are all in different places, except I think Jacqueline and Celine might be in the same place. But my name is Myrielle Holko, and I am in the Washington, D.C. area, and it is 9:14 a.m. for me. So I think that's always really fun to figure out what time zone everybody's in. And my just a brief history, my background is I went into science because my dad died of cancer when I was little. And I felt like it was kind of the time where genetics was starting to be understood at scale, and functional genomics and how different genotypes lead to different phenotypes and all of the various pieces in between. And I just felt really strongly like, well, there's got to be a way to figure this out with cancer. And so that's what I did for my my postdoc or my PhD research. I was working with microarrays because it's before next-gen sequencing was the thing. And so that was, I think, a really exciting moment to see that technology shift from, only being able to look at one gene at a time to then being able to look at hundreds and thousands of genes at a time. And now you don't even have to know what you're looking for. You can just sequence everything and then start to infer what's going on. So I still think that there is a lot of progress to be made there. But, I kind of fell in love with the technology and data aspect of things. And so for my postdoctoral fellowship, I started moving more into that space. And then I took a total change and decided to move from academia to consulting. And that was a huge shift. And I'd say, with respect to women in science, one of the things that I noticed when I was working on my PhD in the early 2000s, like 2000, 2001, was that my PhD advisor, he actually advised me to not have any of the female faculty on my committee. Because he said that he had observed female faculty members being harder on female trainees coming up in a PhD system. And I thought that was really interesting. And I decided not to test this hypothesis that he had given me, and I decided to just, go with it. And I do think then I experienced a little bit of that when I moved into consulting, where I did feel like some of the senior leaders in the organization who were women missed opportunities to raise other women up. And I think that was a really interesting thing for me to reflect on in terms of how am I going to behave? How am I going to conduct myself? And I think that no matter what organization you're in, no matter what culture you're in, really anchoring yourself in your values and making sure that you're behaving in a way that is respectful of that, I think is the key. So I am grateful that I have seen that shift tremendously. And it's a little bit about finding the right people. So one of the concepts that I've loved, so I was in consulting for a long time, but most of my career I've been in the federal government. And that I think is another aspect to my interest in science is I have found that being in the public sector has really inspired me because of the mission. The mission around public sector, the government is really there to help all of us and to solve some of these really large problems. And I find that to be really inspiring for me. But one of the things that I also saw was with the public sector, there was a lot more of a focus on lifting up the underserved voices. And so that is something that I have tried to carry through in my career. And I've seen a lot of examples of that shifting. So I just wanted to raise that as kind of one of the things that I've seen and one of the reasons why I'm so excited about this network. And we're going to save Jacqueline for later, but I'm hopeful that she's going to share with you some of the exciting stuff that she's working on in terms of raising up women voices in science at UCSF. Awesome. So thank you for listening to that. I'd love to pass it over to Myrielle. If you could just kind of give us your introduction, tell us a little bit about your science and what you're working on, but also tell us about your career journey and how you got here and what has inspired you. And yeah.
Thanks, Michelle. So I will start as you say to present where am I. So I'm in New Caledonia. So it's a little French island in the Pacific region. It's about 3 hours flight from Sydney in Australia. So I'm here. I was born in New Caledonia, indeed, and I did my PhD in France, in Marseille. I had my PhD in 26, and I worked at this time. I was working on bacteria and antibiotic resistance. But before that, as long as I remember, when you've got adults asking you as a child, what would you like to be when you are an adult? I said, usually I was saying, I want to be an engineer working on the sea, the oceans, because I'm on an island. And so I've got water just all around. And I really like the sea, but it was like biology at the beginning, for ocean, for fish, or corals, or whatever. Well, after that, I shifted to something else. I worked with microorganisms, and I started with my PhD with bacteria. And then I had the opportunity to come back to my home country, New Caledonia, and I had a position at Institut Pasteur in New Caledonia. And here, and it was, I think, a great opportunity for a woman, because at that time, the director of the institute was a woman. She was a scientist, she was a researcher, and she wanted to strengthen the research capacity of the institute. And it was like a good circumstances. I was back, I was looking for a job, And I had this opportunity, and she opened a position and postulate, and we were several candidates, and I had the job. And she asked me, okay, you have a background in bacteriology, but I would like you to do some virology now. Okay, let's go. Let's dip in the world of viruses. And it was really like a big jump, because there was no more research in the Institute for 10 years. There was nothing done on biology for more than 10 years. So you have to start again from the scratch. And you are nearly alone. Doing that, you got a colleague, and you start and you learn, and you get trained, of course. And this was a great opportunity. And then 5 years ago, the unit that I'm actually heading was created, meaning that there was work that has been done and network. But what I think, so working in the Pacific region, it's not very easy. You are far from everything. Everything costs you like twice or third of the price that you can have, and it's here, and so logistic is just a nightmare. And and also you've got questions that sometimes can be very specific of what of your country, and really it was very important for me to be aware of what were the needs, what were the public health issue, and to conduct some research project that can give some answer to the needs of the health authority. So it's very applicated, and you have to have a balance of very things that are sometimes very simple. For example, running a sero survey to know what's been the previous exposition of the population. It's simple, but it's clue to understand what's been happening in the past, and how we protect, and how we can implement things to protect the population in the futures. But also you have to balance that kind of study with more, I would say, output or research or scientific, more fundamental research question. And here is where the network is very important. The network that we have with the Pasteur network, it's 32, 33 institutes in the world. We've got specific links with, of course, Institut Pasteur in Paris, but also Pasteur network, Pasteur Institute in Asia. And we can answer a question, and we can have like share things and have access to infrastructure, but also the network that you can build in your region with your collaborators from Australia, from New Zealand, from the Pacific region, and so on. And now having Institut Pasteur UCSF QBI Center in San Francisco, it's just at the other side of the Pacific region, you know. There's this big ocean between both of us, but it's meaning that you are not so far, and having access to everything you have mentioned, Myrielle, building this collaboration and still trying to answer the questions that are interest for our peoples here is very something that I'm very kind of, and I would like to pursue to do it in the future. Thanks.
Thank you so much for that. There was so much there. I can't wait to dig in a little bit more. And let's first though invite Jackie to join us here. I'm gonna bring you up pin you to the screen, Jackie. And over to you. I'd love to hear, your kind of your career trajectory, your interest in science, like how did you get into it, and how has it been for you, and also in the context of IPQBI?
I'm called Jackie Kyosimire-Lugemwa, a Ugandan scientist. I did my PhD from London at Imperial College in 2012. And earlier on, as a young girl, I didn't have particular specifics of what I wanted to do. But when I lost my parents in 1992 and 93, both my mom and dad died that time as a result of HIV. I resolved that I wanted to do something on HIV, but I didn't know how to do this. And so when I finished my diploma, then I was doing a diploma. When I finished my diploma in biochemistry and chemistry, I ended up going for internship at Uganda Virus Research Institute. So when I reached there and I saw lots of people doing a lot of research on HIV, things that I'd never even dreamt of in my mind, really, I got so fascinated. I started working with one of my mentors was Professor Alison Elliott, a lady, and I really wanted to be like her. I said, I have to become an immunologist like you. So, and with time, it came to happen. I got an opportunity to do a PhD in Imperial College, and that's how I started my journey as an immunologist in Uganda. And my PhD was on HIV. I was studying long-term non-progressors, HIV-infected long-term non-progressors, and comparing their immune responses to the rapid progressors, which I did for some time. Of course, I had to digress into other researches. I have done some research on pre-existing immunity and how that affects vaccine responses, in particular hepatitis B. I've done some work on helminth and malaria and supporting the Ebola vaccine responses immunologically. And it has been a nice and fulfilling journey doing all that under MRC here in Uganda, MRC stroke UVRI and London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. And from there, I started thinking about ways on how I could do science that is translating the immunology from what I know or what I've done before into something that is very, very relevant to my local population. And so when I got the visiting scholarship with UCSF in 2018, and saw how what they were doing in their labs, they were doing a lot of research on assessing antiviral pathways and assessing signaling pathways and how proteins can inhibit the HIV virus. I got so interested, and that built my next zeal to work on infectious agents like SARS-CoV. When SARS-CoV hit the world, I was just ready to assess the antiviral, maybe natural products. Here in Uganda, we are well known for using herbal medicine and traditional medicine that has not been researched and no scientific evidence. So I wanted to generate that scientific evidence in relation to antivirals that are from natural products. And that's what I'm doing right now at UVRI. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jackie, for sharing your story. There so much there. It's really a pleasure to have this conversation with everyone today. Jacqueline, I'd love to invite you to join us and to share your journey to science as the Chief Operating Officer of QBI.
Good morning, Michelle. I'm in Berkeley, California. It is 6:30. So a different part of the world than a couple of our other speakers. So I'll start by saying that I went into science because I wanted to be involved in something that had impact on human life. And my journey is not the same as everybody else on the call because my background is highly operational. So at QBI, the Quantitative Biosciences Institute, I manage the operations, but I mostly focus on building our relationships and our collaborations, both domestic and international. And on the international front, one of the more interesting programs that we started has been the QBI Scholarship for Women in Developing Nations in Biosciences, which is the exact scholarship that Jackie was just speaking about. And this has been an effort in capacity building, but more interestingly, it enables us to have collaborators in key areas of the world. So Jackie, for example, is someone who's become one of our key collaborators in HIV and also was a collaborator during the pandemic as a result of her time at UCSF. And so prior to QBI, I worked at the United Nations managing a sustainable development project in the field in Haiti, which was very different. It was government capacity building and overseeing infrastructure, energy, agroforestry, fisheries. It was a very different kind of project, but yet the same skill set can be brought into science is what I found, which is basically connecting people and really starting at the roots of issues and communities to bring a stronger community together. And so excitingly, we've teamed up with the Institut Pasteur, and we'll be expanding a number of programs that we have at QBI. and increasing the opportunities for women scientists to come to our joint center in California and their knowledge and skill set. Because I think you saw the map that Celine showed earlier. And when you combine the network of QBI with the network of the Institut Pasteur, we practically cover the globe. And what we're very excited about is finding women in all these different areas who can come to the center at UCSF and bring their knowledge, learn ours, and have this robust sort of exchange. At QBI, we've also been focusing on bringing women to the forefront in different ways. For example, we have a robust symposia series, and in this series, we have a criteria of 50% participation from women, that is speakers and hosts. We also feature women scientists in our various QBI TV programs. We have a channel which features fireside chats, panels, and other types of interviews of scientists in different ways. We have podcasts. And in all of this, we try to see how we can support women in science. And this relationship that we're talking about today with the Institut Pasteur is really widening the network and our ability to find more women who are looking to increase their knowledge and exposure to science. And largely, I see my role as a facilitator. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jacqueline. I think, the operational aspect of taking science and discovery and then turning it into things that actually work, we talk a lot about that in terms of like that translation piece, but, it strikes me that a lot of the work that you're doing is on the back end of fostering greater discovery at scale and, with more connectivity to accelerate that whole process kind of from the beginning, which I think is really exciting. And I think it's undervalued, unfortunately. We think about how scientists get funding for their research, and it's often writing a grant, and you have to justify every little thing. And I think it's really wonderful to see that grant applications are now being encouraged to include diversity, equity, inclusion planning, and these types of collaborative science opportunities. So I think that's a shift that we should all take advantage of. Awesome. Thank you so much. So Celine, I'm going to ask you to come and join us again. And thanks for your introduction, but would love for you to, give us a little bit of your kind of personal introduction and personal journey in science.
Yeah, hi, thanks, Myrielle. So me, I'm a neuroscientist by training. I did my PhD in Paris in neuroscience. I work in connectivity of neurons. So I started my career in science with connectivity. And actually, thinking of what you were saying about women in science, one of the first women in science I talked with in Paris told me, if you want to do science, you cannot have a family, you cannot have a life. It will be very difficult. And I was young. Anyway, I didn't want a family at that time. So I said, okay, I'm fine with that. But then I thought about it. It's like, but I told her, but you have 4 children. Why are you telling that to me? And she told me, I'm extraordinary. I said, okay. So we have to be extraordinary to be a woman, and a man has to be just ordinary man. And she told me, you'll see. And she left. I was like, okay. And then I think I forgot about this anecdote, and then now I'm thinking of, you start your career, you're very young, and someone tell you cannot do it. And it's actually a woman. And I kind of agree that women maybe we are tough, or we used to be tough. I hope that is changing now. So yeah. So anyway, I think I was young, so I don't want a family anyway. So I will continue to do science. So I went in New York, in Columbia University, to do a postdoc in neuroscience, and moved to Spain to work as a young researcher over there. And so I think now, like a reflection, I was really happy in science, loved to do science, but I always had this small imposter syndrome, like maybe I don't belong. And I wonder if now this kind of reflection, that when you're really young, really put like a seed in me on that. But anyway, so life went on, and so I moved to the state, and I switched from being a scientist in the bench to being like more into coordination, because it's something that I love, working with people and really coordinate science. So I work a little bit at UC Berkeley during three years, and that's where I moved from neuroscience to infectious disease. I was in the Center of Emerging and Neglected Disease as a grant writer, and then as a coordinator. And it's funny because I don't know if Jacqueline, but during this time, I always look at UCSF and QBI. They were doing all this work with women and in collaboration with the world and in collaboration with the United States and Europe. And I thought, okay, I love these people. I like what they are doing. They are really building like people in front, like with the seminar, with the communication and everything. And then they create this Institut Pasteur and UCSF center. And I said, okay, maybe it's a sign for me to join them and to try, because I'm French and because I'm a scientist, and let's move over the bay. I'm in Berkeley, yeah, by the way. I'm like Jacqueline. It's 6:30 a.m. in Berkeley here. And so I moved to be the project manager of this new institute. And I'm so far super happy to be with all these amazing people. I think that there is great science, there is great people, and it's a reality. You see, sometimes people talk and say, we will do something for women in science, we will try to build something, and it's just a talk. And I really feel that is a reality, and we are trying to build something here, and hopefully we will succeed.
Thank you so much, Celine. Thank you, everyone. This is really exciting. So one of the things that I want to, a thread that I want to pull on that I've heard a lot. So there are a couple. So just to reflect, one, I think that a lot of us have had very personal experiences that have driven us to want to help improve the lives and the health of people, especially, near us, our family, wherever we are. And I think that's a really interesting thing to reflect on. But the other piece of it that I heard a lot about was, how do you create success, especially, in the face of, your first mentor basically telling you it's too hard and you can't do it. And I think one of the ways that I have, when I look back on my professional activities, I guess I would say, one of the things that I feel like I just did naturally was to create this karass. I don't know if you've heard this term, but it's from Kurt Vonnegut, one of Kurt Vonnegut's books. And the karass is basically what I call your coalition of the willing. So finding people that share your same kind of values and mission and your goals professionally, and are willing to help work towards making that happen. And in my case, I think there have been several key moments of my career when I've had to, kind of go against the grain, so to speak, and, do things that organizationally maybe weren't the most important thing. But finding people within the organization that are interested and are willing to kind of go out on a limb and have your back. And these are the people that I continue to come back to as mentors, for me personally, and professionally. And I wonder if everybody's experience has been in that context, in terms of who are your go-to people that aren't going to tell you it's too hard and you can't do it, but instead are going to help you creatively think about ways to make it happen. So I don't know who wants to start, but I'm hoping that everybody will have at least something to say about this.
I could start there.
Awesome.
I mean, I think I've had such an untraditional path, not only to this, but anything else that I've done, that I think it's common to come across people that tell you you can't do it, whatever it is, right? Especially if you're jumping sectors, you're in one thing, you're in media, which I used to be, and you're like, you know what, I'd like to really move over to operations and do something else. And people are like, you can't do that because you're doing graphics and things. So there's always someone saying you can't do the next thing. But I think what I've found is not necessarily, so I think there's great value in having a mentor, but I think that a mentor can manifest themselves in different ways. It could be that one person you keep going back to, that you look up to and are emulating, or it can be the next person who's already doing what you want to be doing. And in doing that, you latch on to someone's vision or a shared vision, and you pull yourselves together. And so I find that in the face of people telling you can't do something, the people who actually will not even tell you can do something are the people who need you to be doing something with them. And so I think once you find those partners, then it really just doesn't even matter what other people think you can't do.
I love that. Are there any specific people, Jacqueline, that you're thinking of as you were making that transition? I wonder, do you continue to connect with them even beyond that kind of moment?
Well, I think once you've shared a strong vision with someone and have built something, even when you move on, you don't leave it behind. You're still attached to it, so you still stay in touch with people. So prior to United Nations, even I was involved in putting a school together in Haiti, and at that time it was about teaming up with people after the earthquake to set something up. And so we're still very much in touch in each other's lives, and I think still influencing our visions and our thoughts, because it's a building block to the next thing that you are. And so the people that are with you on your path are like Lego blocks, right? As you keep building your structure of yourself as you move forward, I think. And so yes, I'm still very much in touch with those people. In the case of QBI, the Quantitative Biosciences Institute, I think I've been very fortunate to meet Nevin Krogan, who's the director, and who has a sort of endless vision of science and collaboration and bringing people together. And with that, we're very much in sync as how to build a vision for the Institute, but so very inclusive that it brings in other people like Carla Saleh that Celine mentioned, who's also co-directing the joint center, right? And so then you start adding to the sort of voices and people who are envisioning something together, and you're part of this coalition of builders, so Celine is one of the builders in this at this time, right? And then we include people who have been part of different programs like Jackie or others who are then part of the structure.
Yeah, I love that. One of my favorite things that I remind myself a lot, because I tend to, when I was younger, I tended to try to do everything all on my own. But I love to remind myself that together we can go far. If you want to go fast, you should go alone. But if you want to go far, you should go together. I think that there's a lot of strength in that. Thanks for sharing that. Myrielle, I wonder, especially because, New Caledonia, you talked about feeling, a little bit isolated, and how do you create these collaborations across vast bodies of water? And yes, it's all connected, but also there are logistics there. So I wonder, what has your experience been in terms of, leveraging collaborators and, coalition of the willing in your context?
Thanks for the question. I think the first thing, it takes time. You have to be very patient because when you want to build some collaboration, and for example, as we are working with some countries and regions, with Vanuatu and Fiji, you have to meet to go there first. You have to meet people. It's very important sometimes to have face-to-face, to have the possibility to discuss, and they really appreciate if you come to us and discuss with them and listen. Listening is very, very, very important. And then slowly by slowly, you build the collaboration. You're showing them that working with you, it's first trust. And I think for me, it's very important to trust the people who are working with me. I would not be able to work with people I do not trust them. So for me, it's very important to have this thing and feeling that you can speak, easily and to talk everything, and something you've got failure, something is hard, but when you spend I understand that something is hard and you can't on a timeline, something like that. So it really takes time in the specific content of all the different cultures and all the different population we have in the Pacific regions. And it's building like very slowly, but I prefer take time to build the thing slowly and have like a very solid, circle or very solid first piece, and then you can move on. And once you have pass this first step, it's just so great that you contact them, you better respond, and you have another contact. And it's a thing like you've got a first contact, then you put in a second contact, and then all of that you build slowly your network. And you mentioned mentors, and the thing is, it's sometimes it's hazard, sometimes it's mediated by people. Sometimes you believe, but why does she would like to be interested of what I'm doing here? Okay, so that's great. Yes, so let's go, let's start like that. And I've got different mentors or different women, would you, where with women you have the opportunity to speak at a specific moment of your career about certain things, and they just say, no, it's going to be good, you're going to go through that and just move on, just continue to your way, but you think it's good for you and for your team and for your unit and for your institute, and that's great. And I really think saying that in the future I will be a mentor of one or two women or other people. And I will think that I will go on the loop and succeed, because I've been helped in the past, and in the future I will help other people, not for example the PhD student, but other people that get connected and things like that. And I will be it will be something very important for me.
Yeah, I love that. So, really giving back because you feel like you've benefited so much from that. That's awesome. Jackie, I'd love to hear from you if there are specific mentors that have shaped your trajectory or where you've gone or what that's looked like.
Thanks, Myrielle. I have had several mentors, both while I was working with MRC, and when I joined UCSF, I was so perplexed with the way they handled the whole thing of encouraging, bringing up someone's confidence, generally helping you to become who you want to become. When I met Jacqueline and Nevan and the entire team at UCSF, I was so surprised at the way Jacqueline handled me when I joined. For example, she made one-on-one meetings for me with each of the scientists in the group. And we had this one-on-one discussions trying to assess how we could collaborate and how we could maybe do some science together and what I could learn from them. But that, the whole way UCSF really handled me, taught me or showed me very different ways of mentoring people. For example, Nevan, the science that they were doing there was so different from the science that I wanted to do or even knew how to do. It was so new, so detailed, so difficult for me. But at the end of it all, I managed to find a ground whereby I could somehow work with them and also be able to develop my own interests in my own way. So I really enjoyed the mentorship that they gave me there and how they built my confidence. So when I left that side, coming back to Uganda, I started up my whole new science. I did not depend on the other science that I kept doing it, but I had my own new ideas that they were willing very, very much to support and help me go on and move forward, which I've been doing even up to now. Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. Celine, so we heard from you about your first mentor who told you it's too hard, you can't do it. And you've also reflected a little bit on, seeing work that you admired at UCSF QBI and wanting to be a part of it. And you're leading this tremendous effort here. So, feel free to comment a little bit more on mentorship and what that's looked like for you, or we can shift to my next question, which is if you had a magic wand and you could do more of something in order to really move the science forward and move, women's voices in science forward, what what would you do? And this could be a reflection of what you've seen work in the past, or this could be a totally new groundbreaking idea that you're hearing here first, everyone.
Yeah, so I wish I have a creative idea of how to bring women. I feel sometimes I'm old. You see, I was I was like, the Me Too movement wake me up, and I said, okay, it's time to wake up. But I was like, I think in this limbo of, okay, this is life. I have to suck it up and go for it. But one of my mentors, it was when I was in New York, told me something, and I try to remember a lot of time that he was right, because sometimes I was like, I cannot do that with myself. And he told me, there is a lot of people in the world that will say to you, you cannot do it, but don't start by yourself. You have to do it, and the barrier, or they will stop you, but don't stop yourself at the beginning. And this, I think, for me was a really helpful comment all of my life, because a lot of time I stopped myself, so I cannot do that. And because, I don't know, I'm French, I'm a woman, I don't know, whatever reason I can find for myself. And this really to start thinking that you can do it, and the world will stop you, or not, or maybe not, and then you can go further. So I think this was an advice. And in terms of mentorship and how to build, as I kind of believe that between women, we can help each other. And sometimes we are not helping each other as much as we should. Like really bring up, you see, like when we see someone that is amazing, bring her on the top and really show her to the world and give her the voice she needs. And I really think that this kind of partnership, woman to woman, like a sorority a little bit, like will really help having, because when you look at like the years before us, men do that. They help each other and they bring up, and I'm not sure we are doing that as much. So I think that we should do more.
Yeah, I agree. This is one of the reasons why I think that this, collaborative and exchange model is really important. But I think you're right. It's like, there's this cliche in the United States of like men that do business of, all the business happens on the golf field. I don't even know if it's called a golf field, but playing golf, and that like you have to learn to play golf if you want to be a part of those conversations. And I think that's a model to break, and create new ones. How do we want to exchange information, and how do we want to raise each other up? And I think there's a lot of innovation to happen there. Myrielle, I wonder if you have any thoughts about, like, if you could do one thing to really raise up women in science, what would it be?
Second, sorry. I think one of the things I would raise, and while Celine was talking, I was thinking of what I would let transfer, and I think it's way perhaps partnership and rethink what it means to do science right, because it's not perhaps linked to one, but perhaps sometimes as women, we want to be perfect, to do things perfectly, to be sure, very sure, very, 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 very sure, and things like that. Sometimes we accept, to only to talk about the things that are perfectly right. But what is right? Wrong is right in then, because having some wrong result is sometimes very interesting. It's not what you wish, because it's harder to publish, because we are talking of science and we are talking about publication and scientific things. But it's a result that sometimes we need also to have it to say, okay, this did not work as I wanted. It's not the hypothesis that I thought. Finally, it's not that the answer, it's the other thing. But I need to go on. And so rethinking about doing the right sense, I think, should be something.
Yeah, I love that. Sometimes wrong is right. When
Exactly.
we know it's wrong and that's the right thing and that's the answer, we should embrace that. I think that's a really great point. Yeah. Jackie, what about you? What would you suggest we should do more of?
Sorry, I had it muted. Unmuted, sorry. What I would suggest, for me, what would help female scientists, especially in my environment in developing countries, would be exposure. Because from the exposure that I got from UCSF, yes, I had exposure with Imperial College in London, but it was short-lived. I had PhD things to work on in that short time. So I spent most of my career within all those years as I was working alone, focusing on my PhD, doing the research by myself, looking at things by myself. So what I would really advise would be the exposure, as I have said, because once I got exposed to this environment whereby I spent a whole year, and they told me, you don't have even to come to the lab. You can do whatever you want to do, as long as you ensure that you come from here when you've gotten exactly what you want to get out of this exposure. So actually, my goal was to generate collaborations. They accepted me even with my imperfections, even when I had problems with my work. It was all, Jackie, it's okay. And that gave me the confidence to be myself, to think about things that I wanted to do, and to move on as an independent scientist after that. And the other thing that I saw, how Nevan would tell you, feel free to generate the collaborations. If you want someone from the other group, it's all okay. If you really, so it was not dictated. It was a free environment to give me an opportunity to re-evolve myself and become new, which was very nice. Thanks.
That sounds awesome. That's really great. It feels like, as I see you talk, it feels like it was so confidence building for you to have that respect of, we trust you, do with this what you know is best for you. I think that's a beautiful message. I think one of the things around mentorship is, if you're in the position to be the mentor, making sure that you're not trying to just impose your beliefs and ideals on someone else, and instead helping them to find what's truly relevant for them. So I think that's really wonderful to hear. Jacqueline, I'd love for you to comment on this, and then we're going to wrap up with, I'm going to share with you some of the highlights, and we'll go from there.
So I think you said if we had a magic wand, right?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, I would start with, let's say, media. So I think, for example, when you're watching the news, reading the news, or however you ingest the news, when scientists are being spoken of or being interviewed, it's still largely a male figure that we see to represent the scientists. So with a magic wand, I think I would somehow go into the media machine and change the course to start having women scientists be giving the important quotes or the sort of point of view on what's happening on whatever it is, a disease, a pandemic, or a concept, right? Because that's largely still male voices. And I think that would start shifting the public perception of scientists and starting to have a deeper respect for female scientists. I think with that same magic wand, when you're looking at, say, industry and biotech, again, you're seeing more men at the top. And so somehow bringing women more to the forefront in positions of power, or say CEOs and biotechs when they're being chosen, and just opening those channels. I think this is something that would be important and would have a strong influence on women who are in science and who often drop off after their postdocs and go into something else. And lastly, I think just putting more effort into what we're already doing at QBI and the Institut Pasteur, which is creating these scholarships, fellowships, and opportunities for women to come and enhance their confidence, their skill sets, and simply their perception of what success is. And a quick anecdote to piggyback on what Jackie was saying. During her year there, at one point she came to my office and she was, distraught. And she thought, oh my God, this is over. I'm a few months in and this thing is going to be finished. She's like, I completely failed in my experiment and I have no idea how to tell the director about this, And so I went and told him. He's like, oh my God, that's great. This is what he says to her. You failed, that's great, because now you're really starting, right? And so I think this notion of failure, I think, is quite strong in many women, not just in science, but the ability to see failure as a learning opportunity is also something that, I think could be instilled in society as a whole, not just for women, but for men and women. But overall, with the magic wand, I suppose I would continue doing what we're doing and hopefully get more funding to do so, to pull in more women into environments like the ones at UCSF, in Paris, in England, wherever you have these more advanced technologies that people can benefit from. And then I would sort of bring more women to the front with their voices.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Well, I have truly enjoyed this conversation. I'm so grateful that all of you were willing to talk with us today. And I'm incredibly excited to see all of what IPQBI and this burgeoning connected network of global scientists and women in science and women leaders are going to do. So a couple of the highlights of things that I heard. Number one, sometimes you can feel alone, especially if you're working in an area where you're one woman in a sea of men, and thinking about how you build your community and your network can be a really helpful factor for shoring that up. Flexible thinking and creativity was another thing that I heard a lot of. Changing sectors, being willing to change roles, looking outside of, your bubble to see where are people doing things that you admire and respect and want to be a part of, and then trying it. Listening, I think, is another thing that I heard. And to me, listening is one of the highest forms of respect. And I think, basically just, respecting each other, no matter where we're coming from, I think is a really important start. And finally, giving back. Giving back to these networks, to these communities, to these relationships, to make us all stronger so that we can go much farther and make a lot of progress towards these goals of, really protecting us globally in the face of emerging infectious diseases threats. And also I'd say, I really loved, suck it up and go for it. I think that's a really, really good advice. If you really think that you want to, no matter what the world is saying or other people are saying, give it a try. So anything else, any last words from any of my fellow panelists who would like to share anything or things that I missed in the wrap up?
Not for me. Just thank you very much for having me on this panel. It was a great pleasure.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Myrielle.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And yeah, thank you, everybody. We will be sharing this recording, so you can view it later and share it with your friends. And just really excited to see all of these amazing women in science and all of you, do this amazing work. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Myrielle, for moderating of us. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.